Hey everybody, this is George Brasher with Shakedown of Thunder Sports, and you're about to watch the two Irish brothers. Go Irish.
How's it going, everyone? I am ND Sean 45.
I'm Irish Benjamin 57.
And together we make up the two Irish brothers. But as you can tell, there are three of us here today. So without further ado, please welcome from Here Come the Irish Show on YouTube, Michael Owens. Mike, welcome aboard.
Hey, thanks for having me on, guys. I'm a big fan of the show. Been watching you guys for several years, so I'm glad I can finally get on.
Hey, and vice versa. We've been watching you guys for a number quite a while too. You guys have been doing your show for what, 3-4 years now?
Oh yeah, at least we do it on a bunch of different platforms, whichever one's usually the easiest for all of us. But yeah, a lot of different platforms. Been doing it for a long time, and I know you guys had the two Irish brothers for several years, and before that, I know Sean, you were doing solo stuff. So big fan of both you guys.
Well, thanks a lot, man. Actually, this is only our second year of doing the show together, so we're still fairly new and getting things going. But yeah, look, let's just dive right in. Let's quit acting like we're strangers here. So, a lot of big news going on with the Irish this past week. Two big recruits to add to that 2022 class. Both wide receivers, C.J. Williams, Tobias Merriweather, both 4-star recruits. And actually, I think with the signing, correct me if I'm wrong, with the signing of Williams, that put us at the number one recruiting class for 2022.
Yep. It sure did. Yep, we're ahead of Alabama and Penn State right behind us. So pretty impressive. Can't complain.
Now, with Tobias Merriweather, C.J. Williams, both these guys, I mean, what's the big thing that stands out to you guys the most? For me, it's hands down the athleticism.
Specifically for me is that, I mean, they're wide receivers. Like Notre Dame the last several years has been recruiting really good on the defensive side of the ball. We know Marcus Freeman's in there recruiting really good this year specifically. And then for Notre Dame, the biggest, like, I guess you would say recruiting weakness would probably be like the skill position wide receivers. And for Notre Dame to get two guys back in the same week, 4 stars, both top 125 on 24/7, just the fact the receiver position, which is, I mean, like one of the most important parts of college football now, looking at the past champions with LSU's receivers and Alabama's receivers, like that's become a huge part of the passing game and receivers. So for me, it's the fact that Notre Dame just got 2 huge receivers.
Oh yes, and you know, myself, I try not to look too far ahead into the future, but imagining what this receiving core is going to look like when both these guys get settled in, and you can picture the lineup of Merriweather and Williams and what's his name, the new guy, Deion Colsey. I mean, these are some legit studs that we have on our receiving core right now. Yeah. But of course, as I've always said over the years, I want to wait till these guys sign on the dotted line first and actually get on campus. I hate adding any negative vibe, but that's just a fact of life when it comes to college football.
Yeah, you're not wrong. I mean, yeah, it can happen. You can lose guys. I mean, we've seen Alabama and Ohio State lose a couple guys last couple weeks, so it can happen. But you know, I think Mike hit the nail right on the head. You know, it's the game has evolved. And if you want to be in that upper echelon of the big boys of Alabama, Ohio State on a good year, and Clemson, you know, you got to have a passing game. And, you know, the evolution of the game continues, and hopefully now Notre Dame is seeing that by bringing in these big-name wide receivers on the recruiting trail, you know. So if you can open up that passing game the way that we're potentially going to, then we're on track.
For sure. And those are 2 West Coast guys right there. I mean, and then C.J. Williams out of California. Like Notre Dame's taken wide receivers out of the state of California over USC. Like, how big is that? Like, USC is known for their quarterbacks and wide receiver play. The fact that he's going to a cold state in South Bend, like, that's a great job recruiting offensively, because that's what everyone was wondering. Like, can Notre Dame offense catch up with the recruiting on defense? And obviously they have. And like you said, I think the number 1 on Rivals and like number 2 on 24/7, but those are right up there at the top. So hopefully Irish can finish with, I mean, worst case, top 10 recruiting class, and hopefully finish like around top 5 at the end of the year.
Oh, it's shaping up to be a very nice class indeed. But what I like the most, not just that we got 2 playmakers at the receiver position, but I like the fact that it's a nice balance between both offense and defense. Because we get it when you get a guy like I believe it's linebacker Jalen Sneed, to get a guy of his size and athleticism. I mean, it just goes to show that the kind of impact that Marcus Freeman has made right from the start as soon as he was hired on here. Because there was a lot of question marks after Clark Lee left to take the job at Vanderbilt, and you bring in a guy like Marcus Freeman, he's getting it done. He's getting it done too, and so I mean, yeah, this is just shaping up to be a very nice all-around class. And Mike, to add on to the point what you made about getting these receivers, and you could really say this about any position actually, but all these guys from these warm states like California, basically anywhere down south and the West Coast and whatnot. And I've said this before, but I want to get your thoughts on this too. I actually think that it would benefit a lot of those guys to actually play their college football in cold states, because how many of these guys have NFL dreams? And in addition to that, how much would it actually benefit them to play in all different kinds of weather, especially snow?
For sure. I mean, they're going to plan on, like, look at the Packers. I mean, if Packers were the number 1 seed in the NFL last year, and the
Don't
Super Bowl
remind
went
me,
through them,
please.
like, you're going to play in cold weather. Sorry. But yeah, I mean, that's just another thing. If you're thinking long term, like, along with a bunch of other factors, heck, we live here in the Midwest. I mean, it's cold for like 3 months of the year. The rest of the year, it's like the spring feels good, the fall feels good. It's like perfect football weather. So it's really only really that cold. If any recruits are listening right now, oh, it's great all the year round. But it's only like really bad for 3 months. I mean, the Midwest is a great as far as seasons and stuff like that. But yeah, as far as ultimate goal, I think it couldn't hurt them to get used to that cold weather.
Yeah, exactly, because it's not going to be perfect weather everywhere that you go. I mean, especially well, hell, I think it could even benefit guys playing in Canada for a year, but obviously, nobody wants to do that. But no, I think the more types of weather that you play in, the better that it can be for you in the long run as far as your professional future goes. Now, of course, it's not a guarantee that everybody's going to make the NFL, but it could definitely benefit a lot of guys to broaden their horizons and play in different types of weather, different parts of the country, and so on. And I'm not trying to sound too much like a homer here, but a school like Notre Dame, an independent school, plays coast to coast, so you get the opportunity to do that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it falls into the whole who does Notre Dame schedule? And when Notre Dame plays all across the country, I mean, that's why you're bringing in recruits from Arizona and California and parts in the Deep South and then into the Midwest, because these guys know that mom and dad will get to see them. Grandma and grandpa will get to see them if they go back to California, or the year that we played Arizona State. I mean, these guys know this, and they know that they're going to get national attention. I mean, if you go to some other school, you're only in the South, or you're only in the North, or you're only on the West Coast. You don't get those opportunities like you do at Notre Dame. And people can whine and complain and say, well, who does Notre Dame schedule? But recruits aren't saying that. That's for sure. That's just the haters.
And look at Clemson's schedule besides like the first Georgia game. Like, I was just talking to my co-host yesterday and we had our podcast. Like, if I had to guess, I bet Clemson doesn't play like maybe one other ranked team, not even looking at their schedule. Like, I bet they played maybe like one other ranked team besides Georgia, if that. Like, Clemson's schedule after Georgia is they're favored to win everyone by a ton. Like, Notre Dame's schedule is a lot tougher than Clemson's this year.
Yeah, no, they have a cakewalk. I mean, it's like Georgia, and I do believe they play North Carolina this year, so that's a pretty decent matchup.
The Bulldogs, I think they also have Oregon on their schedule, don't they, to start the season?
Who, Georgia?
Yeah, don't they play Oregon to start the year, or is that somebody else?
Ohio State plays them, I think, at home.
Georgia starts the year with Clemson.
Okay, I stand corrected. I couldn't remember. I was thinking it was Oregon that started.
Yeah, Clemson doesn't even play North Carolina this year. So, yeah, they got a pretty cakewalk of a schedule, just glancing at it. I mean, the only like two legit threats on the schedule is Georgia and then in-state rival, in my opinion, South Carolina, just because of the rivalry aspect. So, yeah.
And Mike, speaking of your co-host, Joe knew he was welcome to come on, didn't he?
Oh, I did actually. We can have them on in the future too. I didn't even mention to them. They're so busy. Both my co-hosts are usually so busy and stuff. I didn't even think about asking them to come on, but definitely down the road too.
Oh, I stand corrected. I thought you only had him. I didn't know you had multiple co-hosts.
Oh,
my
it's
bad.
Joe and Trevor. Usually whoever's available, because I mean we all have. I mean you guys are busy too, so usually whoever's available we have on there. But I just figured out that we can like get 3 people on there now. We usually do like Instagram Live or something like that, so we can get 3 people on there now. So usually whoever's available.
Okay. Yeah, I think I could be wrong, but I think on here, since we pay for StreamYard now, I think we can get 9 people here on screen. I could be wrong, but
yeah,
oh, nice.
Yeah. 10 grand total. Yep.
So that's why I love it. I told you, Ben, it was worth the pay for this.
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to have people on at once, though. That'd be pretty crazy.
No. Well, you never say never. Never say never. So on that note, this is a good time to take a little break and give you guys this word from our sponsor.
That looks tasty.
It's a Big King. I got this one for free.
Gonna eat them both?
Not if you let me play baseball.
Baseball? Son, I coach. What position?
Shortstop. No, second base. And I want a bat, too.
Welcome aboard, slugger.
The flame-broiled Big King. It's like a Big Mac, but tastes better with 75% more beef. Buy one now, say it just tastes better, and get a second one free.
How'd you boys like to play ice hockey?
If you ask us, it just tastes better.
And that is us paying our respects to the late great Bobby Bowden,
Yep.
who unfortunately passed away earlier this week at the age of 91.
Yep.
But you guys saw that at the beginning of the episode here. Our prayers go out to the Bowden family and to Florida State Nation. You know, this is where you put rivalries off to the side, and you give respect to the job that a guy like Bobby Bowden has done, because it's because of men like him, which is why, in my opinion, college football is so great.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It's been incredible to see like everybody talking about Bobby Bowden and the impact that he had on the college football game. I mean, I'm a diehard, Dolphins fan, and one of the Dolphin beat writers, he does his time with the University of Miami, and that's a major rivalry in college football. And even he was saying, just the class act that Bowden was, how nice he was to everybody around him and all that is just incredible. Just absolutely incredible.
Well, he even showed it that. Oh, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I'm not sure if you guys saw on like Twitter, there was this letter that Bowden had written to like Nebraska coach in like the 70s or 80s about how a class act, they went in there and won the game, and they thought like the fans were going to spit on them and throw stuff at them. But they said that they were a great class act who welcomed to come in there. He wrote a personal letter to Nebraska, which was pretty cool. I'm not sure if you guys came across that or not.
No, I haven't seen that, but that doesn't surprise me, because I've been to a game against Nebraska, not Notre Dame, but I've been to a Nebraska game when my cousin played college ball, and the Nebraska fans were very, very classy. I was very impressed with that fan base.
Well, and even, not just going back to Bowden himself, even in that commercial that we played, it shows the kind of character that he had as not just a coach, but as a human being, and to tell you the truth, I could actually see myself doing that, to how to rip somebody off for some more food. Like, for example,
it shows that he's human,
Yeah, exactly. See, in my case, it'd be like, hey, Ben, what can I give you for that last Casey's donut or that last slice of Casey's breakfast pizza? Oh, here, I can get you a first edition Charizard from the Pokemon card collection.
Right.
And then I just freaking printed off the computer and like, score Casey's donut.
Yep.
Oh, I tell you, that'd be freaking awesome as hell if we were ever to get a sponsor for this show. But of course,
we joke. We definitely joke and we have our fun with that. But yeah, no, we had to pay our respects to Bobby Bowden. And I mean, and it's perfect because, we just dropped our Florida State Notre Dame hype. And then of course we start the year with Florida State. So, it's just a perfect kind of storm in that regard. So
I have a few, if you guys have a second, I have a few stats I wrote down and for this podcast. I saw the stat online. Florida State was, I'm not sure what years, but Florida State was ranked in the top 5 of the final AP poll for 14 straight seasons. Bobby Bowden finished with 377 career wins, 2 titles, obviously, 21 bowl wins. And heck, just in his last victory was January 1st of 2010 in the Gator Bowl, which that was only 11 years ago. That's crazy. He was still coaching then.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. You're not going to see many guys like him anymore. Him or Bear Bryant or Joe Paterno.
Yeah, I was going to say Joe Paterno for sure.
Yeah, or any of the long-term guys that stayed for, even Eddie Robinson. Even Eddie Robinson at Grambling. You're not going to see that where a guy stays 30 plus years at one school anymore. It's not going to happen. That's become such a rarity. I mean, the closest ones we have now are, currently Brian Kelly at Notre Dame, Nick Saban at Alabama. Who would be another? Gary Patterson.
Fitzgerald at Northwestern.
Yep. Pat's been there for a while now, yeah.
Gary Patterson at TCU. I think he's been there for 12 years?
Yeah. Maybe I think Fitzgerald could be the one that does that because, that's his alma mater and he got that job in a very, very sad situation, but he made the best of it, and he's got them at a really good place. So,
all right, fellas. Well, moving right along. The next bit of news, in particular for Notre Dame football, the Shamrock Series uniforms for the Shamrock Series game against Wisconsin and Soldier Field have been revealed. And what are your guys' thoughts? I want to hear what you guys have to say first.
I actually kind of like it. I've seen people just absolutely despise it, and this is one of them, other than a couple others that Notre Dame has done that's actually, to me, pretty clean and pretty nice. I like what they did with it. I can't complain, and I'm thinking about getting that jersey. So,
yeah, I like it too. I mean, it's not that sophisticated. It's pretty simple, really cool for like a special Shamrock Series game. If it gets the players fired up, which, I mean, they got a lot of tough games in the middle of the schedule, so hopefully gets them fired up, gets recruits fired up. It's more stuff on social media, so anything that can help us get recruits and help us win, I'm all for. So I like them.
Well, I'll tell you guys one thing. I definitely like what each little thing, like each little detail means, because I think it was the 3 stripes on the shoulder that represents, I think, the river and the waterways that go through the city of Chicago or something like that. You have the 4 stars in the back of the helmet. Obviously, that's the city of Chicago flag, along with the graduating champions. The stripes on the pants representing the first ever game that was played in Soldier Field back in 1924, which was us against, was it Northwestern or one of the military academies?
I couldn't tell you. That's a really good question.
I mean, obviously, we all should know it was the national championship year with Newt Rockne. But I want to say it might have been Army, but I could be wrong.
It does sound right since you said Rockne. So yeah, I think it might have been Army.
But anyway, so yeah, you got a lot of cool details with a lot of big meaning on that uniform, and I think they are pretty nice. I know to this point, I can only speak for myself here, but to this point, my favorite Shamrock Series uniform had been the one that they wore against Arizona State down in Dallas.
Yeah,
Yeah,
those
that
were
was-
clean. Those were nice.
Yeah, I like that one.
And the one against the in Yankee Stadium, that wasn't too bad. But of course, you've had other ones that were just absolute flops. But obviously, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter the uniform. It just matters winning the game. So hopefully this is a part of what you guys said. Getting the team fired up to play hard against a really, really tough Wisconsin Badger football team. So
And hopefully they stay undefeated in the Shamrock Series. I mean, they haven't played the best competition, but hopefully they can stay undefeated in that series.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. I mean, Wisconsin's going to be probably, other than the University of Miami, I think they'll be one of the toughest tests in the Shamrock Series that Notre Dame has. So, hopefully they do stay undefeated. I mean, I think just the way that college football set up with Notre Dame, I mean, Notre Dame has to have an undefeated regular season, in my opinion, other than what happened with Clemson and them playing in a championship last year to get into the college football playoff. So, I mean, it's, but that's for a different episode.
Yeah. And I think real quick with the Shamrock Series, I think the closest game we had was that game I mentioned against Arizona State down in Dallas. And I think it was 2013.
That sounds right.
Because I could be wrong, but I think that was only a 1-score game. I mean,
I think it was a close game. I think Notre Dame had come back that game, but
or at least it came down to like us picking up a third down or whatever to seal the deal. I mean, I know Arizona State, they played their hearts out against us. I mean, it was a good game, without a doubt. But anyway, I digress.
I feel like Notre Dame kind of got that series. They played a neutral site in Texas, and then they had to go play at Arizona State like the next year. I think Notre Dame's Notre Dame. Like they didn't have to go play. That wasn't fair. Like Notre Dame didn't have to go play there, and they could have found anybody else playing that Shamrock Series game. But kind of is what it is.
Yeah, and of course, a game like that. I mean, you want to play the best possible competition that you can, but obviously it doesn't always work out that way.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, and you get to see a neutral. You get to see a neutral site. Those guys get to play in an NFL stadium. You get, for the most part, at least most of the time, some cool alternate uniforms, and it's a pretty special thing. Now if they could just play one in Wrigley Field, that would be freaking awesome. But
You said Wrigley Field. Sorry, you broke up.
Yeah, I'd love to see him play one in Wrigley Field because I'm pretty sure Wrigley Field can host football games now.
Yeah, well, they
changed
did.
it. Like when they renovated, they changed it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, they did host one. They had Northwestern and the University of Illinois play against each other. Now, they only went one way.
That's what I'm talking about. I think you can go both ways now.
But, yeah. And to answer your question, Sean, the final score in 2013 for Notre Dame, Arizona State was Notre Dame 37, Arizona State 34. So
okay, that's what I thought.
It was a close game. It was a really close game.
And Sean, you're talking about playing at Wrigley. I actually wrote an article about that like a year or two ago. So like Northwestern actually has like a 4-game deal with Wrigley where they're going to play a couple Big Ten matchups there. Like they've actually changed like where they can take off like the roof of the dugout or something. So they can fit like more people in there, and they might be able to go both ways now. So it's like it's friendly for football games. So, and I think that would be awesome Shamrock Series. Like some people probably hate on it, saying, "Oh, what if they only go one way?" I'm like, you're watching on TV. It really doesn't matter. Don't go to the game then. Like I think it would be awesome. Yeah. I think it would be really cool.
Yeah. No. Now. Make sure you send me that article. I want to check that out. But no, that's freaking sweet because I mean, obviously, the Bears called Wrigley Field home for many years, and it's just that's one of those classic stadiums that seems just like a natural fit to host something like that. I mean, they did it with Yankee Stadium, they did it with Fenway Park. Let's see what other stadium did one. Well, I think those are the main ones that I'm thinking of, but still.
Baseball field wise, yeah.
Yeah, baseball field wise, absolutely. Excuse me. So with that said, on to the next topic. So this is non-Notre Dame related, and Ben and I actually had done a couple videos discussing this already, or different aspects of it. But we wanted to talk with you, Mike, a little bit about the major news of Oklahoma and Texas officially announcing that they are going to be leaving the Big 12 and going to the SEC conference. Now, obviously, we all know what the main reason is. That's why they're leaving. That because and let's just face it, the SEC conference, the richest conference in all of college football.
Currently.
Yeah, yep, currently. That's where the toughest competition is.
Currently.
Man, you made me lose my train of thought, Ben.
Sorry.
So I guess Mike, what's your take on it? What's your thought on the Sooners and the Longhorns leaving for the SEC?
First note I have is Texas is 3-7 in the last 10 meetings against TCU, and they're probably going to be in the SEC West against Alabama. So let's see what Steve Sarkisian can do a turnaround there. But they can't even beat TCU, and they're joining the SEC. But as far as money, obviously it's going to be a lot more beneficial to them in Oklahoma as far as stadium facilities and everything like that. In the long run, it's going to be better. But they're going to be going against Alabama, Texas A&M, who they're familiar with and stuff. So big picture, I like their traditional rivalries and stuff like that. But now we're kind of getting used to all these conference realignments. Like I'm used to Notre Dame being the ACC for most of their sports now. Like we're used to Texas A&M being an SEC school, and we're kind of used to the Pac-12 being the Pac-12, not the Pac-10 and stuff. So, I mean, I'd rather be more conferences because I don't want to be like 4 super conferences, but it kind of is what it is. But I just hope it doesn't force Notre Dame to go from independence, because that's a whole other thing we can talk about. But I hope Notre Dame stays independent through all that.
I agree. I mean, if that's what they decide to do is join the ACC as a full-time member, okay, what can I do about it? I just want to see them win on the field. That's where it really counts. But no, as an independent, I love seeing them, as we mentioned earlier, being able to travel across the country to all these different places, play from coast to coast, play all these different teams. And obviously, if you play in a conference, you lose that ability to be able to do that with your schedule.
Right.
But I'll tell you one thing though, with this recent round of realignment and Oklahoma and Texas joining the SEC, one thing that I can say for sure is that is going to make for some sick basketball.
Well, yeah, and that's, I mean, and
not just football here, but basketball as well.
And that's, I mean, I don't know how much it has actually been discussed, but I mean, are they joining the SEC and everything? Or are they staying in the Big 12? I mean, there are a bunch of schools that play in one conference in one sport and then other conferences in another sport.
No, they're joining for everything.
Okay.
They're joining for everything, for sure. Because if you couldn't play in the Big 12 for football, but then go play in the SEC for basketball or whatever. And of course, as we know, certain sports like like hockey, those are set up differently than your basic.
I think what you're referencing is like the old Big East. Like Notre Dame would play in there; they would play in there for all the sports except football. And there were some other schools who were big enough to have a D1 basketball, but they didn't have like D1 football in the old Big East. But yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's the same what we're doing now. I mean, with the ACC, it's no different. I mean, we're in the conference for every sport but football, and then, like I said, hockey. The conference alignment is set up a lot differently than. I mean, yeah, there's the Big Ten conference, but there is. I don't think there's an ACC conference for hockey. I think it's like Northeast.
Hockey East, yeah. That's what Notre Dame used to be. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I don't think there's an SEC conference for hockey, because I know that hockey is completely set up differently than than the normal setup that we're used to.
Most of the ACC and SEC schools don't have they don't have D1 hockey. If they did it might just be like a club level thing. So most schools don't have hockey. It's really
right. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, so I knew it was something different like that, or like you said, there's a club sport at least, for some for a lot
one
of them.
point I want to make on as far as Notre Dame's independence, taking scheduling, the playoffs, money set aside. Like personally, I like having them being independent because I think if they join the ACC, that'd be like 9 conference games. That only gives them 3 non-conference games each year. So like, I rather Notre Dame, like this year Notre Dame's playing Purdue, and the next year they're playing West Lafayette. That's a close. That means a lot for Notre Dame fans living in Indiana. Like if they take Purdue off the schedule, it's like, oh, Notre Dame's going to play Wake Forest or North Carolina or NC State on the East Coast. 1, I can't go to that game, and 2, like most people in Indiana, like it's not a big rivalry. Then you got teams like Michigan State will stop playing them. Stanford, USC. You can't play as many games as like Ohio State in the future. Texas A&M, Alabama, Florida, Wisconsin. These Shamrock Series games, like. I don't want to be tied into playing ACC games 9 out of the 12 games and then non-conference games. You can't have those completely loaded. So as a fan, I want to go to as many road games as possible and see all these cool matchups. So just as a fan perspective, I like them staying independent because it gives me more teams to face and watch and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and if they play the 9 conference games, who are the 3 rivalries that you're going to keep? I mean, you'd think Navy would be a for sure one, probably USC. And then, that's a lot of rivalries you're gonna end up losing. And even you mentioned Purdue. This is our first time playing Purdue in 7 years.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't know. I mean, if the conference realignment keeps happening, we might just be SOL with some of our classic rivalries.
It's not even just conference realignment; it's playoff. The playoff is supposedly expanding. Well, I mean, if the rumors are true, Notre Dame is getting the short end of the stick when it comes to playoffs. Well, if they join a conference, then they're not. So it really just depends on what happens in the near future. So, but like I told Sean on a different show, right now I don't care about any of it because we're independent and we do our thing and people don't like it and I love it. So
that's another thing I was going to say too is like, okay, like the Big Ten championship, Northwestern's been the Big Ten championship like 2 of the last 3 or 4 years. Like who cares? Like if Ohio State beats Northwestern, like Notre Dame's top to bottom schedule is better than some of these teams playing the extra game. Now, don't get me wrong. Like the SEC, those guys have to go through another gauntlet in the SEC championship game. It's not as fair to them. Like, who's Clemson playing in the ACC championship? Pittsburgh or NC State or someone like that? Like Clemson's not getting a challenge in their conference. Big Ten's really not against like Northwestern or somebody like that.
Yeah.
So
And it going full circle. That's kind of why I think Oklahoma wanted to leave the Big 12 because, I mean, Oklahoma beats the vast majority of Big 12 teams. I mean, look at their championships last like 10 years for the Big 12.
They've been blowouts.
I mean, Texas, on the other hand, is a little different of a story. But for Oklahoma, I get it. I mean, people are like, okay, what? You're going to beat up on TCU. You're going to beat up on, Texas the one time you get to play them extra. You're going to beat up on – I mean, who's opposing Oklahoma in the Big 12?
Well, TCU has actually held their ground against Oklahoma pretty well, actually.
Right, but I mean, vast majority though.
Yeah,
as opposed to the SEC, where it's been Alabama 1 year, Florida the next, LSU. Georgia's been knocking on the door. It's not. There's multiple teams year in and year out fighting for that championship. Where it's like, okay, well, we know it's probably going to be Oklahoma and TCU. And like Mike said, it's going to be Northwestern and Ohio State in the Big Ten. I mean, Michigan's taken a step back. Michigan State's taken a step back in recent years. So,
Well, and speaking of the playoffs, and I had mentioned this to Ben in another episode that we did, but I want to get your perspective on this, Mike, and your opinion. Now, obviously, we know why Texas and Oklahoma are leaving the Big 12 for the SEC. Money's the number one factor. It's the main reason. But let's look at it from a football perspective. Now, if that does happen, which I think it probably will, I think there's enough of a buzz about it that the playoffs are going to expand to 12 teams most likely. When? I don't know. I think that's what it is right now. It's just a case of when it does happen, But from a football standpoint, and based on the playoffs expanding to 12, you would think that Oklahoma and Texas would just want to stay put in that case. I mean, why would you want? And I'm not saying that the Longhorns and the Sooners couldn't hold their own in the SEC. I think they're good enough programs to be able to. But why would you just not want to stay put then and win your conference, get ranked as high as you possibly can, and know that you'll be in that group of 12, in that playoff field of 12?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, heck, Oklahoma's made the college football playoffs, like 3 or 4 times, something like that. Like they always win the Big 12 and always have like one loss or so when they make that, one or no losses when they make the college football playoffs. And then now they're going to be playing probably the SEC West. They could get smoked by Alabama for like 3 touchdowns and then make the playoffs if it's 12 teams like in the future. But yeah, I know what you're getting at.
And that's my point. I mean, I'm not saying that that they couldn't do well in the SEC. I'm not saying they couldn't even win it. But it's like, why would you want to put yourself against tougher competition than what you already have when the playoffs are going to be expanding to 12 and the door is wide open for you to get in? Just win your conference and you're there, But, I don't know.
What I think is going to happen is I think West Virginia is going to go in the ACC. I think Kansas will go in the Big Ten for basketball because they're a big basketball school, and the Big Ten's big on basketball. I think a lot of the other schools are going to join. The Big 12 is going to join with the Pac-12 just to make one other super conference. So I think there's going to be 4 big conferences. So whether or not that's good for college football.
Well, I can tell you one thing. Ben, another good friend of Ben and I, he goes by the screen name Golden Blue Dude, big time West Virginia fan. He's actually got a very big growing channel right now on YouTube. I was watching a video of his before we started recording here, and yeah, he kind of said the same thing that you just did, Mike. He could easily see Iowa State and Kansas both going to the Big Ten, which obviously Kansas wouldn't offer much for football, but basketball definitely. Yep. And I should probably let everybody watch this episode for themselves because it's only a 5-minute video, but he thinks what could happen. And I think this could get really interesting. Those 5 remaining schools, because, like you said, West Virginia going to ACC, Iowa State and Kansas going to Big Ten, and obviously Sooners and Longhorns going to the SEC. He thinks that the American Conference could come in and poach those 5 remaining teams, go to 16 teams, and go from Group of 5 to Power 5 status. And
yeah, I could see that happen too.
I got to be honest with you. There's some excitement out of this realignment stuff. When you see that opportunity arise, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that possibility of those 5 remaining teams going to a conference like the American, which is kind of on the rise a little bit. I mean, they've been playing some good football. I mean, look at, Cincinnati coming out of that conference, Memphis usually putting up a solid team year in and year out. SMU improving, Houston, and so you get where I'm coming from.
If Cincinnati goes undefeated this year, they're going to make the playoffs. They play at Indiana and at Notre Dame. If Cincinnati goes undefeated, they'll make the playoffs this year.
Oh yes.
Yeah. Well, and then and if they go undefeated, it also depends on level of victory too in the undefeated games. I mean, if God forbid, if Cincinnati beats Notre Dame by 2 touchdowns, oh my God. They go undefeated, you're a lock. I mean, there's, no doubt in my mind. And I think it would be just absolutely a travesty and all that for them not to make it. Now, I hope to God they don't beat Notre Dame by 2 touchdowns, but hypothetically speaking, yeah, I agree with you. Yeah.
So speaking of the Bearcats, and that's something that popped in my mind just now that I wanted to talk about. Which opponent, if you had to pick one off of our schedule of 12, which opponent disturbs you guys the most? For me, I would definitely have to say Wisconsin, because I think there's a lot of people that don't even have them in their top 25, but I think this is a team that's going to be a a lot more scary than what they're being given credit for. But that's just me.
What do you got, Mike?
It's tough because like the whole middle of the schedule is all like Notre Dame has like 4 or 5 teams who are like ranked right in the top 10 top 20. Like Wisconsin, Cincinnati, at Virginia Tech, USC, North Carolina, all those teams have the capability of like getting in the top 10 or having like a bad season, getting out of the top 25. Like that whole middle of the schedule, like at Virginia Tech, their coach is on the hot seat. Cincinnati, they want to prove everybody wrong and upset Notre Dame. Like Wisconsin, North Carolina, USC. I mean, guess if I had to pick one, it'd probably be, I would say at Virginia Tech just because it's a road game. I'd say at Virginia Tech.
Lane Stadium is no easy place to play, that's for sure.
No. Nope. That's interesting. I say North Carolina. There's something about North Carolina that just makes me very, very nervous, and I think it's their quarterback. You know, he doesn't get enough credit for what he has done so far at a place that is known for basketball that is becoming now a football school with him at the helm. You know, I know it's at Notre Dame Stadium, but North Carolina plays people tough. And I think that if they can run their schedule and get a bunch of wins heading into Notre Dame Stadium or even be undefeated, I mean, North Carolina could be a very scary team in my opinion.
I have no idea what happened last year. And happened last year in that matchup. Like North Carolina got 2 touchdowns to start the game, and then Notre Dame's defense completely shut them out. Like I don't know how that happened, but last year that was crazy.
I think it was more just with that game in particular in North Carolina, it was experience factor. You know, Notre Dame is the more experienced team. They got guys that have been through it. North Carolina was more of an up and coming. They were younger. You know, this year, yeah, I mean, if they get up by 2 touchdowns, I don't know if they relinquish that lead. But last year, Notre Dame was just that battle-hardened team that knew what they needed to do, and they got the job done. So, let's
not forget. I mean, look at who North Carolina's head coach is. I mean, Mac Brown.
Yeah.
His track record speaks for itself. I mean, this is a guy who has won in the past, and it's not surprising that he's winning now with a team that, I mean, let's face it. Most people thought that, okay, North Carolina was going to improve, but I don't know how many people actually thought that they were going to be doing this good. You know what I mean? Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, I mean, yeah, he's Mac Brown is just showing the kind of coach that he is, the kind of recruiter that he is, and that he's working his magic, up in Chapel Hill.
Yeah, I like Mac Brown. I like when he was a host on ESPN and stuff like that. I like Mac Brown as a coach, so I don't know anything bad about him, but it was fun watching him at Texas, and now he was at North Carolina originally, and he came back there now. So I like watching North Carolina and stuff like that. So Mac Brown's a great coach.
Yes, he is, and you know, without question, that Tar Heel team, they are going to be a handful come. What's the date? October. I think it's Halloween weekend, actually.
That sounds right. We were talking about trying to go. Yep, it is. It's October 30th. Yeah, I mean, North Carolina doesn't have much of a strong schedule in the beginning, so they could really. I mean, they go to Lane Stadium to start their season, you know, but then after Virginia Tech, it's Georgia State, Virginia, Georgia Tech, Duke will be a challenge, you know, just because of the rivalry. Florida State, Miami, and then Notre Dame. So I mean, Florida State could be a challenge. You just don't know. I mean, Florida State has shown that they have a really good recruiting class, but they can't put it all together on the field. So I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens with the Tar Heels.
Well, they'll definitely be battle tested coming into that game against us for sure. And I guess and just to explain something on my part real quick, most people would probably are probably wondering, why didn't you say Cincinnati, Sean? Well, there's without question they're going to be dangerous, and I'm not saying they won't be dangerous, but that game, what you got to remember, there are two big things on our side right now. Brian Kelly, Marcus Freeman. Brian Kelly, former Cincinnati head coach. Marcus Freeman, former Cincinnati defensive coordinator. So if there's two guys on our coaching staff that really know the ins and outs of that program very well, it's those two. Now, granted, it might obviously probably a different system since Brian Kelly was last there in 2009. But still, most programs usually tend to be pretty consistent over time.
And the nice common thing this year is most of the big games are like neutral site Wisconsin, but all the big USC, North Carolina, Cincinnati are all in South Bend. And I forget I think it's like a 24-game home win streak or something like that. Now the Cincinnati one's like a 2:30 kickoff, so it's not a night game. We'll see how much the crowd gets into that one, but luckily all those games are at home, and Kelly has been tremendous this whole tenure in South Bend. So.
And Mike, I'm glad you brought that up. Brian Kelly's tenure in South Bend, and Ben and I have talked about this many times before. But if you've been watching us, and me or the two of us together, if you've been watching us as long as you've as you say you have, that I cannot stand the quote unquote realist fans. Ben knows where I'm going with this.
Yep.
They're
in every fan base. It's not just our fan base, but they're in every fan base.
Well, no, that's true. But I can only focus on our fan base.
I get it.
But I got to be honest with you. I cannot stand people like that. I mean, when it was announced that we were going to play against Alabama in the playoffs this past season, you know what I was doing? I was cheering. I was like, yeah, we made it. We get a chance here to make a statement. Granted, it didn't go in our favor, of course. And I get it. That, the fans in this fan base want to win these games. I get it. I more than understand that. But to actually call for a coach's head, a coach who in his time here has gotten us to two playoffs, one national championship game when it was still the BCS, 1, 2, I believe, three undefeated seasons.
And that's like the last 10 years. That's like 30%, like the last 10 years, like you're saying.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. He has to win these games.
The big games, yeah.
He has to win the big games. I understand that. But are you really going to why would you want to fire a coach that has taken us to places that we literally have not been since the Lou Holtz era?
Yeah.
I said
this on the podcast yesterday, on my podcast. Think about a program like an hour or two north, Michigan. Michigan's like a similar history as far as Notre Dame. Look at theirs. Look at their season the last several years, Jim Harbaugh, like how bad Michigan's been. And look at Notre Dame, like you just said, they've been in a championship game and 2 playoff appearances in like the last 10 years. And then more recently, like 2 playoff appearances in the last 3 years. Like how many Division I college football teams are there? Like 130 or so now. And Notre Dame was one of 4 teams in the playoffs. Like anyone else would have lost to Alabama by more. In fact, Ohio State did lose to Alabama by more. Like I definitely want Notre Dame to be there. Like that's good to be on national television. People don't understand like the drop off from Alabama and Clemson, Ohio State, like everybody else. Like Notre Dame was one of the best 4 teams. They deserve to be in there over Texas A&M. Texas A&M had their shot. Like, don't get me wrong. Like 7 or 8 years ago when I was younger, I used to get real upset. Now I'm just trying to enjoy it. Like I think they'll get over the hump someday. But I mean, they're one of the best 4 teams 2 of the last 3 years. Like just enjoy the ride, people. Like these games are fun. Like 24-game home win streak, owning all your rivalry trophies. Like Notre Dame dominates teams now. Like they don't just barely win these games against or get upset by some of these teams like we're familiar with. Like Notre Dame is dominating. Just enjoy it. And the thing is, they got a number 1/2 recruiting class right now, so it's not going to end anytime soon. So don't be haters and just freaking enjoy the ride.
Yeah, and I can't tell you how many times, like when Ben and I were doing our preview and recap for the ACC championship, and the lone year we were in a conference, and then for the Rose Bowl against Alabama, I heard that word realist
too many times,
more than I would like to, more times than I can count.
Right, and the sad thing is that they're in our fan base and they're in other fan bases, and it's just people that are constantly negative and people that just are never happy with any situation that they are in. Like Ohio State, I saw it in the Ohio State community. They got in, I mean, because I'm originally from right outside of Columbus. Okay, so I have a lot of friends growing up that are Ohio State fans. I see it on Facebook, Twitter, all that. Ohio State gets in the national title against Alabama, and the realists came out in the Ohio State fan base. Well, there's no way that we're going to beat Alabama. You know, the Clemson game was a fluke, and and it's like, really, like, back your team, man. Like, I don't get it.
And who was it that called his own fan base out? Justin Fields. Where's Justin Fields play now?
Chicago.
Bear down, baby. Bear down. And I know that's probably a mistake on my part. You know, Ben and I want to grow. We want to grow this channel. We want to grow this podcast. And maybe I'm a little too harsh on our fan base, but it's just when I see the word realist and people saying we don't have a chance to win this because it's a tough opponent, or when I see so many people sell out the stadium, hence the Georgia game in 2017.
And the
Nebraska game in 2000. That stuff makes me sick.
Yeah.
You're going to, you know, you then it's like, if you're going to do that, if you're going to sell your ticket just to make a quick buck, then don't cheer for the team.
Yep.
Don't cheer for the team at all.
The USC game here a couple years ago, like last time they played them, and it was like third down. I was literally like, I was standing up telling everyone around me, like, stand up. I'm like, you guys paid all the money for this. You guys could watch it on TV. Like, you guys been sitting at, I'm like, you guys been sitting at a desk for 40 hours during the week. That's what I've been doing. I can sit down the rest of the week, stand up and get loud. Anything you can do, in my opinion, if I can get louder, or if I can do anything to, like, on social media to get players to, like, be involved, anything I can do as a fan to, even if it makes just the smallest impact, you know what I mean? Like, that's what I want to do. Always be positive. So
have you ever had anybody tell you to sit down and be quiet?
I don't think so. No, I'm usually, I wouldn't really care if they did or not. I don't really.
Well, let me tell you a quick story about that. My buddy from Ireland, Shamrock Jerry, he's come in for a couple of games, and there was one woman, he was up doing exactly what you said, getting loud. And you know, if you've ever heard a native Irishman cheer and get loud, it's something to behold, man. So much passion. It's ridiculous. This lady, this middle-aged woman, actually had the nerve to tell him to sit down and be quiet. They're trying to watch the game. And I'm not going to repeat the words that he said to her, but he was like, I traveled all across the Atlantic for this game, and you're going to tell me to sit down and be quiet? Oh, I don't think so. And he was getting loud and making noise. And yeah, that's a problem that has unfortunately found its way into Notre Dame Stadium. Is it's like, it's a football game, not a golf tournament.
Yep.
I think it's gotten a lot better though with the Jumbotron and using more music here in the last like 10 years. Like when I first started going to games, like it was just the band playing. I'm like, okay, like the band doesn't get me as fired up as AC/DC or Metallica or whatever it is on third down. Like the band should not be, I'm sorry, like the band can have first or second down, but third down, they need to be blasting music and stuff like that. Yes. But it's definitely gotten a lot better since then, I would say.
Well, when they first started playing music over the speakers, I mean, it took them a few tries to get it down, but I think they're starting to master it. I think they are. And just one other point that I wanted to make real quick in regards to, like, when you're selling out the stadium and letting the opposing fans take over the stadium and refusing to make noise and stuff like, and being a quote realist. I don't know what your take on this is, Mike, but those kind of fans in our fan base that are like that, they better be careful, because you're not going to tell me that recruits aren't going to take notice of that.
Yeah, I mean, the recruits take notice, but, I mean, some of these guys, especially, coming from big-name programs, I mean, you look at, like, Jordan Johnson, for example, coming from DeSmet Jesuit. I mean, we played DeSmet at the high school I went to, and let me tell you, I mean, the fans at the high school level can be just as bad as the fans at the college level. So, a lot of those guys, unfortunately, already experienced that. And the other thing, especially nowadays with our guys, our new recruits, they have the internet. I mean, we didn't, the internet wasn't a thing until just recently. I mean, when we were younger, the internet was just starting to become a thing. So you didn't have the back and forth banter. You didn't have the bullying that is now on social media and all that. So these kids, to me, I think are more hardened now than they were back in the older days of college sports. You got these especially older people. You got these middle-aged people telling you that you suck on Twitter and Instagram and Facebook. And like you're talking to a high school kid and a college kid. I mean, come on, man. And the kids just brush it off. They ignore it. I mean, sometimes they, say something. I mean, we saw Brian Kelly's son let some journalist that works for a different publication have it, which was kind of funny. But yeah, so I think the kids handle it better than I think some people give them credit for. But it's still not right. I mean, that's my bottom line. It's not right.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys know this, but I write for uhnd.com as well. So, I mean, I will say stuff like, okay, Ian Book needs to stay in the pocket a little bit longer, or I'll write stuff about that, like just not criticisms, but like where they can improve on. But like, I'm not going to go out there and get mad at someone who does something I couldn't do. Like, I'm not playing D1. I wasn't good enough. I played D3 baseball. I wasn't good enough to go play D1 or anything like that. Like, you guys, like all these people who are hating never did it themselves. You know what I mean? It's
Right.
one thing if it's coming from someone who, like a athlete or a commentator on TV who is a professional athlete, but you guys weren't this, like people who hate and stuff like that. You weren't good enough to go play D1. You weren't quarterback at Notre Dame. So just sit down and just enjoy it. Like, stop being haters. And I can't tell you the last time on social media I read the comments or my mentions. Like, I don't even care what people think. So I don't even read that anymore, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Ben will be the first one to tell you that's something that I need to work on a lot. And when I rolled my eyes just there before, that wasn't towards you, but I can't help but when you mentioned UHND, I don't even know. I seriously doubt I'm still talked on there now, but man, that in the
feathers. Let's just say that.
No, just I used to be a running gag on UHND for whatever reason. I mean, those guys were freaking horrible to me, the people in that comment section on there.
You mean like the message boards or something?
The message boards, yes.
Okay.
I think the site is great as far as like news and stuff goes, but when you get into those message boards, I don't know what those people's problem is on there, but man.
I've been writing for like the last 3 or 4 years. I don't think I've ever clicked on the message boards. I think message boards kind of started out. I'm a little bit younger than you guys, so I think message boards were definitely before like YouTube and stuff like this was popular. I think message boards were like definitely a lot more popular, but honestly, don't even click on those or anything like that, to be honest with you.
Well, I'm just filling you in.
Is where things don't go to die, man.
Yeah.
Everyone's big and bad behind a little fake icon, and no one sees them, right?
Well, let's see. I know the guys that run the site, Frank and I forget the other guy's name. I think Frank is one.
Yeah,
the ones
Frank,
who created the page.
Frank and
Kyle, that's it. Yeah. Well, to give you the long and the short of it, when in 2010, I had only been on YouTube for a year. And do you remember that recruit we had, that offensive line recruit, Matt James, the one who passed away in the accident on spring break?
Yeah, I remember that now. Yeah.
Well, I made a video paying respects to him, and I guess somehow that video found its way over to the UHND message boards. And man, let me tell you, some of the crap that was coming out of the mouths, or actually I should say keyboards, on the people on that message board, some of the most god-awful things that you could ever think of, like accusing me of trying to use his death to get the spotlight and this, that, whatever. I mean, it was terrible. So it's just like when you mentioned UHND, I just couldn't help but think of that, and those were some bad times, man. But thankfully, though, I got a message from that Matt James's cousin and his friend saying that they did see the video that I made, paying my respects to him and his family, and they loved it.
Great.
So I'm not trying to guilt you for writing for UHND. Please don't think that.
Oh no, I've met them in person one time. They were at the Notre Dame USC game when they played most recently, and those guys are. Frank is hilarious once he's got a little liquid courage in him at the games.
Cool.
He's a hilarious guy. So
Yeah, awesome, man.
Yeah. And it's not like they tell people in the message boards to be, jerks. I mean, it's like we've made videos on our channel talking about stuff and people start really fighting in the comments. I mean, we've had that happen before. I've had that happen on some of the stuff that I've worked on. I mean, it's not like I went and said, oh, well, such and such, you need to go call such and such's mom, this name, that name, and that, So, yeah.
Yeah. I can't even watch myself on podcasts after I do it. I'm like, I sound like that. But there's probably a bunch of comments on there like, oh, that pasty guy's on there keeps saying about a million times. But I don't really even I can't listen to my videos on replay or anything like that.
Well, I think we all have our little ticks where, we wish we could change it, but unfortunately they're always going to be there with us, The
biggest thing that I say to myself is 90% of people that are watching my stuff and Sean's stuff and your stuff don't do it. They're not doing it. So you want to put yourself out there and you want to do all that, I'll take your opinion a little more serious, and the ones that do nothing tend to have the loudest opinion. So
people don't understand how hard it is to make these podcasts. Like the fact that we're all busy, like if we didn't have jobs and stuff, we can make these podcasts super good with all these facts and stuff. But like, heck, I got to give myself like a half an hour before each podcast to come up with the notes and everything like that. So it's like, especially Sean, back in the old days when you were doing it by yourself, just like doing it by yourself, that is so hard. I cannot do it by myself. I start getting off on a tangent and stuff. So congrats to anybody. There's a lot of podcasts out there, especially people like us. Like there's like two different types of like writers and podcasts out there, like people who do it full time and people like us. Like we're just doing the best we can. We're not going to every spring practice. This isn't our full-time job like some of those sites is. So we're just doing the best we can.
I would love to be able to do this for a living, get paid to do it. This actually be my career, my job. But if it doesn't happen, then I'll gladly continue to do it and have fun doing it.
Right.
And
this is a labor of love, as I say.
Yes. But I'll say this, going back to, 2009, 2010, I can't believe I've been on that long already. It was really tough back in the day, having to use a tripod and a camera. And because the computers that I had, it wasn't the best video quality, but having to position the camera just right, sitting on the couch that got made fun of all the time because of the stripe pattern.
Yep.
And making sure that I was talking clear enough. I mean, it's so much easier now. I mean, actually being able to afford the equipment, the camera and stuff. It's a much better production, and it just goes to show you learn as you go. A classic cliche saying, but it's very true. And I'd like to think that I've gotten better over time.
Yeah.
So, So yeah. Anyway, now that we've given our biographies.
Hey, side note, guess who's going to the Notre Dame Florida State game?
You're going?
Yeah, me, Joe, and a couple of his buddies were driving down to Tallahassee.
There you go. Love it.
Yeah, so.
Well, you better get some
a lot
good
of
footage
content on my social media pages. Oh yeah, you'll see all kinds of stuff on all my social media pages. I'll be going live and posting videos around campus and everything. So.
Nice. Well, that's going to be Ben and I for the Purdue game. We plan on going to that, and I plan on going to another one after that, but that's for other reasons. Not for no disrespect, but not for you, Ben.
No. And if he asked me to go, I'd be like, 3's a crowd. So
yes, and she's mine, hands off.
Yeah. Hey,
there you go.
One is enough, believe me.
Oh, and that's where your wife makes her cameo.
Yep.
Listen, I'm not married. You should know better than to piss off your wife.
Hey, I see like these polygamous shows and all that, and I'm like, how? Like, I get what you're going for, but how? Like, how? I mean, seriously. So
The only
yeah.
matter of how is how many people we're going to piss off by talking about that.
Well, we're not playing Brigham Young this year, so
No politics, man. Come on.
But anyway, yeah, no. So no, yeah, that's a big no-go for me, man. Big no-go. So
So yeah, what's something else that you guys would like to discuss? Anything that's on the top of your minds?
I don't have much else. We've pretty much hit everything.
And of course, Mike, you are always welcome to come back for another episode. I mean, we're always looking to get more guests on and whatnot. And well, speaking of which, do you guys have anything big coming up for Here Come the Irish?
Nothing specifically. I'm so busy with just moved into an apartment, and I coach high school baseball when I get a chance to too. I'm usually pretty busy. So usually during the season, how it works is I'll write an article for UHND. It's called like Primer, previews the game, my prediction, everything. And they'll usually be released like Monday or Tuesday. And then me and Joe and Trevor sometimes too will kind of do the podcast on Friday nights. Now we might be trying to start getting like guest pickers on there. So like last year for the playoff game, we had Torrey Hunter Jr. I've had him on twice. So we're trying to do maybe like a guest picker just with like the week predictions and stuff. So usually throughout the season, that consumes most of my time is doing the article and then the one podcast a week. So, but the last guest we had on was John Michael Bertrand. If you guys followed any of the Notre Dame baseball, they almost made it to the College World Series. He was a guest on there. So I love to have guests on there a lot more, but you guys know, you guys are just as busy as I am probably. So it's just trying to find time to do stuff like that.
Yeah, man. I mean, we've definitely seen some videos that you guys have put out here on YouTube. But where do you guys do your podcast at for anybody watching that might not have seen you guys before? Where can they catch your podcast at?
Just usually type in "Here Come the Irish" on any platform, but usually the service we use is Instagram. Unfortunately, whenever we do like multiple people on Instagram, it doesn't let us like save the video to post to YouTube. So a lot of the YouTube videos you see are just like when it's me solo or something like that. So most of our stuff is on Instagram, but sometimes we get over to YouTube too. So pretty much any social media platform, you'll see "Here Come the Irish" and stuff. So.
All right, we'll make sure to get all your guys' stuff posted in the description box below. Instagram, obviously Twitter. That's where we've been communicating the past few days, or the past week, I should say. But no, I mean, you guys definitely put on a good show over there. We definitely have had some common guests. I think let's see, you guys had Irv Smith on. We had Irv on as well.
Yeah, Irv's super cool. Yeah, he's super cool guy.
And you know what? I don't know. Did you guys ever have Reggie Brooks on?
Have not had him on. No.
Okay. Well, apparently everybody that we've talked to, because we had Reggie Brooks on the show, we had Clint Johnson, another former Notre Dame wide receiver, on the show, and we're trying to get more, but we're going to keep everything as a surprise for now. But from what I hear with about Irv is when they were at Notre Dame back in the day, if you wanted to know where the party was,
you went with Irv.
you follow Irv Smith. That's where the party was. That's what Reggie Brooks told us. Swerve and Irvin Smith was where you went to find the party. So but yeah, I mean, all I can say is Mike, you guys put on an awesome show over there. You know, whenever I'm able to check you guys out, I do. And you keep doing your thing, man. You know, us Notre Dame podcasters, we got to stick together, right?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys. I will, whenever you guys get this published, I'll post on all my social media platforms when I get a chance to and show everybody. But thanks for having me on. Yeah, I guess whenever I get a chance in the future, we'll definitely try to hop on here again. So,
hey,
Awesome.
Hey, we are more than happy to. I mean, obviously, you know, we'd love to meet, you know, the co-host of your show, Joe, and the other dude's name is Trevor, right?
Yep, Trevor. Yep.
Okay, yeah, we'd love to have you guys on for a super chat one of these days. That'd be awesome. But no, we would be more we would be more than proud to call you guys colleagues, and you know this as much as the internet sucks from time to time with all the crappy things that are out there. This is what makes the internet cool. All the awesome people that are out there that we meet, people that would normally get overlooked a lot of other places. And this is definitely what makes podcasting and YouTubing worth it, man.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. More.
So we can't say it enough. You were welcome back here anytime. We're always down for talking about the latest Notre Dame news with anybody, and it's
and you took time out of your day to be with us. I mean, that's the way I look at everything. You took the time to be with us, and then anybody that's watching it took time out of their day to watch us. And to me, if it's just for a minute, that means more to me than anything else in the world.
Amen.
So
yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I love the sport myself too. Yeah, it's awesome.
So, is there anything else that you would like to add? Any quick topic? Any comment on something?
No, I would say less than 4 weeks till Notre Dame, Florida State. I think I was texting Joe the details. I think we might be heading down like early in the morning Friday. Heck, I might be just driving the whole way. I could do it myself. Like, there's nothing like a road trip with going to a Notre Dame game. Those will fly by. I'm super pumped for that. And then we got week 0. There's a few matchups in week 0. I know Illinois and Nebraska might be playing because they're supposed to go to Ireland. But there's a lot of good week 1 matchups as well. I mean, there's some conference games going on. So, man, I'm ready for – like I was saying on my podcast yesterday, there's not winter, spring, summer, and fall. It's just college football, the regular season of college football, then the off season. I schedule everything. I schedule all my days off around college football. There's just 2 seasons: college football season and not college football season. So
that's true. That's true, especially if your baseball team is doing bad over the summer. Your summer's kind of shot as far as that goes, as far as sports go.
Sean would know all about it. So,
what'd you say?
He said you would know all about it.
All right. I try not to curse on this channel, but Ben, I'm a Cubs fan. He's a Cardinals fan. No, you couldn't ask for a better friend and a better co-host. But I couldn't agree more. Football is what I'm all about, and I'll tell you guys one thing. It sure did come quick this year, didn't it?
It did, which is good because Notre Dame football is almost back. So it was good. I'm glad it went by fast.
That's the nice thing about it. It's like you have all summer, and as soon as summer's about to get to an end, you got college football. So it's like summer and college football are awesome, right back to back. So.
Yeah. Well, and also when it gets to be August like it is now, you wake up early in the morning and you feel that. I mean, it's still hot. Yes, I mean it hit 101 degrees here today, but you start getting that feeling of that coolness early in the morning. You know what I'm talking about? That it's almost here. It's almost here, and that's when it starts getting real.
Yep.
So, all right. Well, look, we could draw this episode out for as long as we want, but hey, that's what another episode is for. Mike, Thank you again so much for joining us. It was an absolute blast. I hope you had a good time.
Sean, yeah, absolutely. Sean, Ben, thanks for having me on the show. Hopefully, I'll be able to see you guys in person sometime this fall or in the future, and on the podcast again. So, thanks again, and go Irish.
Go Irish.
Damn right, go Irish. So, for Mr. Michael Owens of Here Come the Irish, I'm ND Sean 45.
I'm Irish Ben from 57.
And as we always say, God bless, go Irish, and go. Okay, I got out of order. God bless. Okay, God bless, good night, go Irish. There you go.
Go Irish.
All right.